Hello, I'm David Martone, Executive Chef at Classic Thyme Cooking School, here with my good friend Norman Weinstein, who's our knife expert. Tonight we're going to work on some knife skills, but let me tell you a little bit about Norman. God, Norman, we've been together since 1995 working together.
Yes.
Norman is one of the founding fathers of an organization called the New York Association of Cooking Professionals, formerly cooking teachers.
Yes.
Name changed a few times. Anytime you see hands in a article, it's usually Norman, some beautiful articles written about him, and we do knife skills as one of our most important classes. We think it's the basic foundation for everybody, and today we're going to try and teach you how to cut your prep time basically in half. Norman, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do some stuff backwards. So I have everything prepped. Actually, you prepped it for me before we started.
Yes, I did.
But you did it in half the time that I would normally do it.
Yes, that's also true.
So I'm going to start sauteing some chicken. And while I'm doing that, I'll ask Norman some questions about knives. Now, I've got a pan on the heat. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of the ingredients that Norman's going to chop up for us, and we're going to turn it into a paella. So I have my pan hot. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to start to saute some pieces of chicken. Norman's cut up a whole chicken for us, and we'll do that actually at the end of the segment. He's cut it up into about 12 pieces for me. So Norman, while I'm sauteing this chicken, would you show us the different knives and explain a little bit about each of their functions?
Sure, David, I'll be glad to.
Great.
I'm going to take you through just a couple of knives. Number one, you want to start with the chef's knife. This is what a chef's knife looks like. This happens to be a 10-inch blade. This is the most important blade in your kitchen because most of the work that we did tonight was done with the chef's knife. After the chef's knife, you want to have a paring knife, 3.5 to 4-inch paring knife. Chef's knife does the big work. The paring knife does the little work. Maybe you'll mince garlic. Maybe you'll, as you'll see later, we'll core a tomato. We'll show you how to peel it. I use the next knife a lot, but again, you should purchase the knives you need on the based on the order in which you use them or your real need for them. This is a serrated blade. And this is the blade we're going to use. You should be using to cut your bagels, all your breads, your hard crusted breads, tomatoes, of course, all your citrus fruits. Are you surprised? Yes, you should be. But it's a very, very versatile knife. You also want to use this to cut brownies, and you can also use this as a slicing knife. If you're going to be carving, and the difference between carving and slicing is you're dealing with bones. This you're going to slice something boneless with your slicing carving knife. You're going to take a chicken off the bone, you're going to carve it. You need to know where the joints are. So you're going to be cutting at the joints, you're going to separate leg and thigh, you're going to take the breast off the bone. You need the tip of this knife to do that. Finally, that's your boning knife. It's kind of a specialized knife. I can show you how to use it tonight, but really everything we're going to be doing can be done with the chef's knife. One more thing, as they say. If you purchase good knives, and these are very, very fine knives, you are going to want to purchase what we call a honing steel. This is the tool that keeps your knives sharp on a daily basis. And if we get a chance later, I'll show you how to use them. That chicken is browning nicely.
Yes, Norman, why don't you show them a couple of knives that are not so good knives that were traded in here on a sharpening seminar that we did, and explain a little bit about the construction of the knife and what makes a good knife something that'll last a lifetime versus something that becomes disposable after a while.
This is a good knife. The first thing you notice when you pick up a good knife is its weight. That is what you're looking for, because as we'll see later, as we start cutting stuff up, it's the weight of the knife that's going to help you get your work done quickly. Here are the features of a knife. It has a blade, it has what we call the heel, but right behind the heel is this thickened piece of steel called a bolster. That is your sign of a well-made knife. This is a fully forged knife. That means at one point, this was a thick blank of steel which was pressed down, goes through many, many processes. The handle is added, this weight at the back is added. And again, looking at all of these features, but particularly the bolster. That's the sign of a good knife. Now, let's take a look at this knife. No bolster. I pick it up, and immediately the first thing I notice is that it has no weight to it. Therefore, to cut up heavy vegetables, onions, carrots, celery, I'm going to be doing the work, and I don't want to do the work. I want my tool to do the work. So the first thing is heft. You want heft. The second thing, which you can't see, but I happen to know, is that this is a high carbon stainless knife, which can readily be put on your honing tool to keen up the edge quickly. This is a stainless steel knife. And stainless steel happens to be a very hard steel. It's harder than your honing tool. So to bring your knife quickly back to sharpness, using this on this will just not work. And as David said, when people realize after they take a class or so that they really need to have a better tool, this is the kind of stuff that gets traded in for the better stuff.
Norman, I've finished browning my chicken. Now, you've used the slicing knife to slice up some chorizo sausage for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add that sausage so I can get that a little bit brown as well. But perhaps in talking about the 10-inch knife and talking about the amount of work that you do, and you were saying about doing all the work versus the knife doing the work, why don't you give us a demonstration on how that big knife really does some of the work for you?
Certainly, David. One of the things we teach in the class here is how to properly use these knives, eliminate unnecessary stress. One of the things that causes unnecessary stress is pressing down to get your cutting done. Now, that took a lot of stress on these muscles here. Instead of that, what you want to do is the following. It's a nice long stroke, not a short one. You start at the tip. You angle this knife slightly down. Now, notice how much of this blade we use.
Okay.
Right? People tend to use just a short part of it, and they come to a full stop. What you want to do is the following. Place the knife here, start downwards, forward and downwards. Bring the knife down, glide it on the board, and at that point, you've come to the end of this stroke. Pick it up completely. Pick the blade up, and do your next stroke.
So it's one continuous motion.
It's one continuous motion.
You know what, try that again. I want to just feel the,
right.
you're talking about the stress.
Watch when I press down.
I feel your muscles
I can't even do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Now what? Put your hand back there.
Okay.
And I'll do...
No tension at all.
No
the
tension.
muscle is fully relaxed.
Right. No tension
So
whatsoever.
I guess the knife is doing the work.
That your tool is doing the work.
Yes.
That's what you want a tool
Okay.
to do. So one more time, watch the
I'm
long
going to feel
stroke.
it again because you know what? I never trust anything, Norman. Except for you.
You can trust me, David. Starting here, you start a forward motion, and then you gradually bring the back part of the knife down. You glide it on the board at the end of your stroke. You don't come to a full stop, as I just did. You do the following. And when you get to you make your follow through, you pick it up and do your next stroke. What you're really getting is this kind of continuous motion, rather than ever coming to that kind of a stop.
Similar to other motions we do in cooking when we saute.
Saute, you're doing this with
So
the pan,
we get a rhythm.
Right,
We get
because
a
if you
good
do that,
rhythm going.
it's going that way.
Yes, that's when we're cleaning the eggs off the back of the stuff.
So that's your sliced chorizo, which you now have in the pan.
One of the things that people always have trouble with are onions. Maybe we could slice up an onion and really give people a little bit of an idea on proper way to do that. Now, we have all kinds of stories about onions and tearing eyes, and I heard one lady tell me that she puts her husband's boxer shorts over her head and it stops the tearing of the eyes.
Well, we're not going there tonight, David, but the first thing you do when you want to dice an onion is, it's a location thing. That's the stem end of your onion. That is the root end of the onion, which in the process we're going to show you will never be cut off.
And you know what, Norman, while you're doing that, I'm going to start to add, I've got my chorizo browned nicely, my chicken browned nicely. I have the other ingredients that you prepped graciously for me, I might add. We have some red pepper, we have some celery, and I guess when people ask questions about why it's important to know these specific cuts and not only have the knife do some of the work for you, but be able to be uniform with things that we do. And what I always tell them is that when you're doing a dish like this, you need things that are cut in similar sizes so that they cook evenly.
Right.
It's very important because they're all going in at the same time. So while you continue on the onion, I'm going to start to stir this in and we'll get this onion, celery, and pepper nice and tender for our paella.